The 1968 United States quarter dollar holds an interesting place in American numismatic history, not only because of its design but also because of its timing within the broader changes to U.S. coinage. To understand the 1968 quarter fully, one must begin with its roots, the Washington Quarter Series. First introduced in 1932 to commemorate the bicentennial of George Washington's birth, the Washington Quarter was originally intended to be a one-year commemorative issue. The design by John Flanagan, chosen over other submissions, featured a left-facing bust of Washington on the obverse and an eagle with outspread wings clutching a bundle of arrows on the reverse. Its popularity and practicality led to the decision to make it the standard design for the quarter dollar, replacing the standing Liberty quarter. For decades, the quarter remained a silver coin, struck in 90% silver and 10% copper. However, by the mid-1960s, the rising price of silver and widespread coin shortages prompted the U.S. government to overhaul coinage compositions. This culminated in the Coinage Act of 1965, which eliminated silver from circulating dimes and quarters and replaced them with clad coins made of a copper-nickel sandwich around a pure copper core. The 1968 Washington Quarter belongs to this new clad era and represents only the third year of full copper-nickel production. One of the most notable aspects of the 1968 quarter is the reappearance of mint marks. In 1965, the U.S. Mint had removed mint marks from coins as part of an effort to discourage hoarding and collecting during a period when coin shortages plagued circulation. For a few years, collectors were frustrated that their coins bore no visible sign of the mint of origin, creating a dull uniformity across the nation's coinage. By 1968, however, the Mint reinstated mint marks, placing them once again to the right of the bow in Washington's hair on the obverse of the quarter. Thus, 1968 quarters may be found with a D mint mark for the Denver Mint, an S for the San Francisco Mint, or without a mint mark, which indicates the Philadelphia Mint. This detail is crucial because the San Francisco Mint struck not only regular proof coins but also, beginning in 1968, all proof coinage for collectors, marking a significant change in minting practices. For collectors today, the presence or absence of mint marks on a 1968 quarter adds an important dimension of value and variety. From a technical standpoint, the 1968 quarter is a clad coin composed of outer layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a core of pure copper, giving the coin an overall composition of about 91.67% copper and 8.33% nickel. The coin weighs 5.67 grams, has a diameter of 24.3 millimeters, and features a reeded edge. While the specifications may seem routine today, they represented a break from over a century of American tradition when quarters had been made of silver. For many Americans, this change was both symbolic and practical. Clad quarters had a different ring when dropped, a different weight when held, and they also tarnished differently compared to their silver predecessors. At the time, some people hoarded pre-1965 silver quarters, considering them more valuable not only for sentimental reasons but also for their intrinsic silver content. Thus, when the 1968 quarters entered circulation, they became a visible marker of the nation's transition to base metal coinage in everyday commerce. Mintage figures for the 1968 quarter also highlight its significance. At the Philadelphia Mint, which did not use a mint mark, more than 220 million quarters were struck. The Denver Mint produced an even higher number, exceeding 100 million coins. Meanwhile, the San Francisco Mint focused on proof coinage, striking over 3 million proof quarters, each carefully manufactured with polished dies and specially prepared planchets to provide a mirror-like finish. The proof quarters of 1968 are notable for another reason as well. They marked the first year that all proof coinage was centralized at the San Francisco Mint, beginning a long tradition that continues today. For collectors, this makes 1968 proof sets historically important, since they inaugurated the modern era of proof production at S. Mint. When examining the obverse of the 1968 quarter, one notices John Flanagan's classic portrait of George Washington, which had been slightly modified over the decades but still retains the dignity of the nation's first president. The word liberty arcs across the top, Washington's head is centered in profile, and the national motto, "In God We Trust," is positioned to the left. The date, 1968, appears prominently at the bottom. If present, the mint mark appears just to the right of Washington's ponytail ribbon. The reverse depicts the heraldic eagle, wings spread majestically, perched upon a bundle of arrows symbolizing strength and readiness for defense, with olive branches below representing peace. Around the next top. The coin you have is a 1990 Washington quarter minted at the Denver Mint, as shown by the small d mint mark to the right of Washington's ponytail. The Washington Quarter series began in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, and the design was created by sculptor John Flanagan. On the obverse front, you see a left-facing bust of George Washington with the word Liberty at the top, "In God We Trust" to the left, and the year 1990 at the bottom. On the reverse back, you see an eagle with outstretched wings perched on a bundle of arrows, with 2 olive branches below, symbolizing both strength and peace. The inscriptions "United States of America," "E Pluribus Unum," and "Quarter Dollar" are clearly shown. Quarters minted from 1965 to 1998, including your 1990 example, are made of a copper-nickel clad composition, an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core. The total weight is 5.67 grams, the diameter is 24.3 millimeters, and the edge is reeded with 119 reeds. Unlike earlier quarters made of 90% silver before 1965, your coin contains no silver and is considered a circulation strike, intended for everyday use. In 1990, the Denver Mint produced 927,638,181 quarters, making it a very high mintage year, which means the coin is common in circulation and not rare by itself. However, collectors often look for varieties and errors such as off-center strikes, double dies, clipped planchets, broad strikes, die cracks, or other anomalies that can make even a common year valuable. The 1990 D quarter in typical circulated condition is worth face value, 25 cents, while uncirculated examples in mint state condition, especially MS 65 and higher, can sell for $2 to $10, and coins graded MS 67 or better can fetch hundreds of dollars due to their scarcity at that grade. Proof versions were struck in San Francisco with an S mint mark, but those were sold in sets to collectors, not for circulation. Historically, quarters are interesting because they reflect the evolution of U.S. coinage, from the silver Washington quarters, 1932 to 1964, to the copper-nickel clad series, 1965 to 1998, to the state quarters program beginning in 1999, which revitalized public interest in coin collecting. Your 1990 D quarter belongs to the last generation of the classic eagle reverse design, which ended in 1998. This makes it part of the pre-statehood quarter era, a transitional point in American numismatics. While the coin is not rare, it is still collectible as a piece of U.S. history, especially when preserved in good condition. The quarter remains the most widely used coin denomination in the U.S., playing a central role in vending machines, parking meters, pay phones, historically, and everyday transactions. Collectors often assemble complete date and mint mark sets of Washington quarters, and a 1990 D is a required piece in that set. Some people also look for full strike details, meaning sharp feather detail on the eagle and crisp hairlines on Washington's portrait, which can increase desirability. In terms of cultural and economic context, 1990 was a year of transition in America. George H.W. Bush was president, the Cold War was ending, and technology was beginning to accelerate toward the internet era. Coins like your quarter quietly passed through countless hands during these moments, serving as both tools of commerce and silent witnesses of history. The Denver Mint, where your coin was struck, is one of the main U.S. mint facilities, located in Colorado, known for high-volume production. Its D mint mark distinguishes it from coins minted in Philadelphia, no mint mark, San Francisco, S, and occasionally West Point, W, in later years. To identify whether your 1990 D quarter might be worth more than face value, you'd check for condition, mint luster, lack of scratches, minimal wear, any doubling on the lettering or date, or unusual minting errors. Some rare error varieties from around this time can be worth $50 to several $100s. Otherwise, in circulated condition, it's mainly a piece of everyday history. Nonetheless, even if it isn't rare, many collectors appreciate these coins for completing albums or for nostalgic reasons, since pre-statehood quarters are becoming less common in circulation as they are pulled out by collectors or replaced with newer designs. To sum it up, your coin is a 1990 D. Washington quarter, made of copper-nickel clad, mass-produced with over 927 million struck, worth face value in circulation but possibly more if in pristine mint condition or if it has a mint error. Its significance lies not in rarity, but in being part of the long-running Washington Quarter series, bridging the era between traditional eagle reverses and the modern commemorative quarters that would dominate from 1999 onward, making it a solid representation of late 20th century U.S. coinage and a piece of Americana that still carries both monetary and historical next top. The 1979 D. Washington quarter belongs to one of the most widely circulated and easily recognizable series of American coinage, the Washington quarter. First introduced in 1932, the quarter replaced the standing Liberty quarter as part of a commemorative effort to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The obverse design, featuring the profile of the first president of the United States, was created by sculptor John Flanagan, and though it underwent minor modifications over the decades, the essential portrait remained consistent from 1932 until the design was retired in 1998 in favor of the 50-state quarters program. By 1979, the Washington quarter was already well established as a mainstay of American coinage, circulating in massive quantities and minted at several facilities, including the Denver Mint, which struck the coins bearing the D mint mark. These quarters are found with the familiar inscriptions that have become symbols of American identity: Liberty above Washington's head, In God We Trust to the side and on the reverse, United States of America, E pluribus unum, the national motto meaning out of many, one, and the denomination quarter dollar. The year 1979 is particularly interesting in U.S. numismatic history because it was the year the Susan B. Anthony dollar was introduced as a new denomination, replacing the Eisenhower dollar. The Washington quarter itself, however, did not undergo any dramatic design changes during that year. It remained a copper-nickel-clad coin as it had been since 1965. Prior to 1965, quarters were composed of 90% silver and 10% copper, but the Coinage Act of 1965 eliminated silver from circulating quarters due to rising silver prices and the increasing cost of producing coins. As a result, by the time of 1979, quarters were struck from a clad composition, a pure copper core sandwiched between outer layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel. This metallic change made the coin more economical for mass production, while also giving it the familiar silvery appearance, without the expense of actual silver content. Collectors and everyday users alike became accustomed to the clad quarter, and the silver quarters of earlier decades gradually disappeared from circulation, hoarded by the public for their bullion value. The Denver Mint, identified by the small d mint mark on the obverse of the coin, to the right of the ribbon at the base of Washington's bust, produced a massive number of these quarters in 1979. In fact, more than 489 million 1979 D quarters were struck, making them extremely common in circulation. Because of this high mintage, the coin is not rare in circulated grades and typically holds only face value, 25 cents, unless it is in exceptional condition. However, collectors often pursue uncirculated examples, mint state specimens, or quarters graded by professional grading services such as PCGS or NGC. High-grade examples, particularly those with sharp strikes, clean surfaces, and strong, full details, can command higher values in the coin market. A full details designation generally refers to the clarity of design elements. For instance, the sharpness of Washington's hair curls on the obverse or the detail in the eagle's feathers on the reverse. Coins struck with worn dies or mishandled in the minting process may show weakness in these areas, while well-struck coins with minimal bag marks are more desirable to collectors. The reverse design of the 1979 D-quarter continues the classic motif by John Flanagan, showing a heraldic eagle with outstretched wings, perched on a bundle of arrows with two olive branches beneath. This imagery was meant to embody both the military strength and the peaceful intentions of the United States. The arrows represent preparedness to defend liberty, while the olive branches symbolize the preference for peace. Surrounding the eagle are the inscriptions United States of America at the top and $quarter at the bottom, with E pluribus unum centered above the eagle's head. The combination of inscriptions and imagery reflects American ideals and national symbolism that had been in use on coinage since the late 18th century. By 1979, these motifs were deeply ingrained in the public consciousness, and the Washington quarter was not just a means of commerce, but a small piece of American identity carried in millions of pockets and wallets. In terms of collectability and value, the 1979 D-quarter is considered a modern coin, and because of its enormous mintage, most examples are only worth their face value in circulated condition. However, uncirculated coins, especially those in higher mint state grades like MS 65, MS 66, or MS 67, can fetch prices ranging from a few dollars to over $100, depending on rarity of condition and collector demand. Error coins from this year are also of special interest to numismatists. For example, some 1979 quarters are found with off-center strikes, doubled next top. The United States $quarter of 1982, specifically the one struck at the Philadelphia Mint and bearing the mint mark P, is a fascinating coin in American numismatics because it represents both the enduring traditions of U.S. coinage and an era of significant economic and minting changes. To begin with, the quarter is one of the most widely recognized coins in American circulation, serving as a crucial denomination worth 25 cents, or 1/4 of a dollar. Its history dates back to 1796 when the first draped bust quarters were issued, but the design we see on the 1982 coin comes from a much later era, specifically from the 1930s when the Washington quarter was first introduced. The inscriptions on the coin, E pluribus unum, Latin for out of many one, liberty, and in God we trust, are not just decorative features. They embody the nation's identity, political philosophy, and cultural values. The 1982 quarter, therefore, is not just a piece of change, but also a miniature historical document reflecting the ideals of the United States. The obverse design of the 1982 quarter features a portrait of George Washington, the first president of the United States, designed by sculptor John Flanagan. This portrait was first placed on the quarter in 1932 to mark the bicentennial of Washington's birth, and it became a permanent feature of the denomination thereafter. The word liberty appears above Washington's head, symbolizing the founding principle of the United States and a value for which Washington himself is revered. To the left of Washington's profile is the motto "In God We Trust," which became a mandated inscription on U.S. coinage following legislation in the mid-20th century and reflects the nation's religious heritage and trust in divine providence. Beneath Washington's bust is the date, in this case 1982, which identifies the year of mintage. This year is particularly notable because the Philadelphia Mint had only recently begun placing its mint mark, P, on coins, starting in 1980, and therefore the 1982 quarter with a P mint mark is among the earliest issues where Philadelphia coins can be distinguished from those of Denver or San Francisco by this small identifying letter. On the reverse side, the 1982 quarter showcases the iconic heraldic eagle designed by John Flanagan as well. The eagle is perched with its wings spread wide, holding a bundle of arrows in its talons, symbolizing strength, defense, and readiness to protect the nation. Below the arrows are olive branches, representing peace. This dual imagery of war and peace has been a recurring motif in U.S. coinage, meant to signal America's preference for peace, but also its preparedness for war if necessary. Above the eagle's head arcs the motto E pluribus unum, a Latin phrase meaning out of many, one. This slogan dates back to the earliest days of the Republic and reflects the idea that the United States is a single nation formed from many states, and also a diverse people unified under one federal government. Surrounding the design are the inscriptions United States of America and $quarter, clearly identifying the coin's issuing nation and denomination. These features, while familiar to Americans who use coins daily, are packed with symbolism that ties back to both the founding era and the modern identity of the United States. In terms of metal composition and physical characteristics, the 1982 quarter belongs to the clad coinage series that began in 1965. Prior to that year, quarters were made primarily of 90% silver and 10% copper, but due to rising silver prices in the 1960s, the U.S. Mint shifted to a copper-nickel clad composition. Thus, the 1982 quarter is composed of an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core, giving it a total weight of 5.67 grams and a diameter of 24.26 millimeters. Its reeded edge serves both a practical and symbolic purpose. Originally designed to deter clipping or shaving small amounts of precious metal from the coin's edge, the reeds remain as a tactile and aesthetic feature even on non-silver quarters. By 1982, Americans were well accustomed to this clad composition, and the coin's durability and resistance to wear made it ideal for circulation. While the coin lacks intrinsic bullion value compared to its silver predecessors, it carries significance as part of everyday commerce and as a collectible for those interested in modern numismatics. The historical context of 1982 adds another layer of meaning to the coin. The early 1980s were a time of economic difficulty in the United States, with high inflation and unemployment lingering from the 1970s. The Reagan administration had just begun implementing its economic policies, which emphasized tax cuts, deregulation, and controlling inflation. Coins from this period, including the 1982 quarter, circulated heavily in an economy where cash transactions remained dominant, unlike today's increasingly digital marketplace. For collect